Welcome back to the GCSE Maths Pro YouTube channel. In this video, we will be going through expanding triple brackets. So this is for higher tier students only. If you haven't already checked out how to expand double brackets, I would highly recommend you do that first because we will be relying on that method a lot in this video and I won't necessarily be going through that bit from scratch. So I will link that here and in the description below. So expanding triple brackets, obviously we've mentioned before that expanding is basically another word for multiply. So imagine you have multiply symbols between all three brackets now instead of just one or two. So to expand triple brackets is just, as I said, an extension on how to expand double brackets. So what I would recommend to do is just to take two brackets first, don't worry about the third one, expand those, simplify, and then we'll come back again to use the last one. Now you can do any order that you like, but I tend to just stick with the first two because I just think otherwise it gets a bit complicated, doesn't it? So let's say we're just going to expand x plus 3 and x plus 8. I'm not going to go through this in much detail, we'll just kind of whiz through it. So we've got x times x, x squared. We've got x times 8, 8x. 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times 8 at the end is just 24. Now, before I do anything else, I am going to simplify this. So expand and simplify the first two brackets, and then we'll come back and use the third bracket. Step 1 expand, step 2 simplify. So you should get x squared plus 11x plus 24. So we've expanded the first two brackets. Now though, I do want to bring back the third one obviously. So what I would do is I'd write down my new bracket here, which does actually happen to now have 3 terms in it. X squared plus 11x plus 24. That's all in one bracket. And then whichever one is missing, so for me, x plus 5 is missing, goes in another bracket. So I am actually back to the concept of having two brackets still, double brackets. The only difference is obviously the first bracket, or you might have put it second, has got 3 terms in it. So whereas we mentioned for double brackets in the previous video, you are multiplying together 4 terms, you're getting 4 terms and then you simplify. In this case, we're actually going to be multiplying 6 times because we need to multiply everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket. So that equates to 6 times that I need to multiply, and therefore 6 terms that I will get. Now, I like to just draw it out with the same lines. So, for example, starting off with the first term in the first bracket, multiply that by the first term in the second bracket. So, fairly straightforward. X squared times x is x cubed. Then, multiply that same term by whatever else is in the second bracket. So, there's only one more term. So, x squared multiplied by the other 5, which gives me plus 5x squared. The reason I do it this way around is because then I'm only multiplying by 2 things. You can do it the other way around, but you'd have to multiply everything in this second bracket by all 3 terms in the first bracket. It just depends. It's up to you, whatever makes sense to you. I like to do it in this order, and at the end, when we come to simplify, that's when I'll show you why I like to do it this way. So I've done those 2. Obviously now I need to move on to the next term in my bracket, which is the 11x, so you can use different colours if you find that helpful. So 11x times by the first term in the second bracket, which is x. 11x times x is 11x squared. And then again 11x by the other term in the bracket, which is the 5. So plus 55x. So that's 4 so far. I'm still missing, obviously, another 2 terms. And hopefully you can see that's obviously from the 24, multiplied by both terms in the other bracket. So 24 times x plus 24x. And finally, 24 times 5 plus 120. So, do you see how not only do I have 6 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3 pairs of 2, I've also then got 6 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know I'm not missing anything, there should be 6. Now I need to simplify again. And this is where I'll explain why I prefer to do it in this order, because similarly to the previous one, when we expanded double brackets, I mentioned that I did have the like terms in the middle together, didn't I? So I could just add them. In this case, it's the same thing. Do you see how I've got the x squareds together and the x's together? So I just need to add them directly. Now, it's not really important that you have them in order. I feel like it just makes it a little bit easier. That's in my head. It makes it a little bit easier. I do it in that order. It makes sense to me. And then when I go to simplify, it's all in the right place. I'm not trying to look through loads of terms and figure out which ones are the same. They're all just in order. That's just what I prefer to do. You might prefer to do it in a different order. As long as you get the same answer as me overall, it doesn't matter at all. You don't have to do it this way, but that's just my suggestion. So simplifying, obviously I have x cubed, there's no other x cubes there to add it to. 5x squared plus 11x squared, so that's 16x squared overall. Then I've got 55x plus 24x, which gives me 79x. And then, as you know, normally there's just a number at the end, 120. So it does simplify down to 4 terms normally, unless any of them happen to cancel themselves out. So your final answer is x cubed plus 16x squared plus 79x plus 120. We basically just have an extra term compared to the double brackets, don't we? Now, whereas I said this one is called a quadratic, the x squared, this one, because now x cubed is the highest value, the highest power of x, this is technically called a cubic expression, I guess, because there's no equation, is there? A cubic expression is when you've got x cubed as the highest power of x. So let's go through this one a little bit more quickly. The only thing to be aware of here is we now are going to incorporate a negative as well, so that will obviously impact your multiplication, but the method is the same. So we've got expand and simplify x minus 2, x plus 1, and x plus 10. So step 1, take the first 2, or really any of the 2 brackets that you want to start with. I'm just going to start in order, so x minus 2, x plus 1, expand those. So we've got x squared plus x minus 2x minus 2. So as I said, just be careful of the impact of that negative value there. And then step 2, before I move on, I will simplify it. There's no point in expanding and multiplying by 4 terms when I can just simplify them down to 3 terms. So x minus 2x is minus x overall. So I've got x squared minus x minus 2. Then I'll bring that over here, put it in a bracket of its own, and then bring back whichever of the brackets you haven't already used. So in my case, that would be x plus 10. And start again, just expand and simplify. So I like to take the first term of the first bracket and multiply it by both terms in the second bracket, as you can see here. So I get x cubed, obviously you should always end up with an x cubed, right? When you've got triple brackets, it should be a cubic overall. Then I've got plus 10x squared, so that's those two. Then the next 2 is that middle term by both terms in the second bracket. So be careful here, this is negative. So that's negative x squared and negative 10x. And then finally, the final term in that first bracket by both terms in the second bracket. Again, negative, so negative 2x and negative 20. So I've expanded it all out. You can check you've got 6 lines or you've got 6 terms, that's fine. But I still need to simplify. And again, you can see everything is in order. So it's effectively in descending order, isn't it, in terms of powers of x? And my like terms are next to each other. So x cubed overall. We've got 10x squared minus x squared, so that's plus 9x squared. We've got minus 10. Ignore that my line kind of cuts that in half. It is negative 10x, isn't it? Negative 10x, take away another 2x, so that would be negative 12x, and then just negative 20 overall. So x cubed plus 9x squared minus 12x minus 20. Okay, if you feel like you've got the hang of it, then feel free to pause the video, have a go at this one yourself, and then check your answer afterwards. So we've got expand and simplify x minus 9, x plus 7, and x minus 1. So we've got 2 negatives now. So it just gets to a point where it is very repetitive, isn't it? I'm going to expand the double brackets. Now, as I said, you don't necessarily have to draw all of the lines, so I might just expand it, visually without doing that. I know I've got x squared, I know I've got plus 7x from the top, and then from the bottom, minus 9x minus 63. Now to simplify, obviously my terms in the middle are next to each other, so that makes it easier to simplify. So the first 2 brackets should give you x squared minus 2x minus 63. Then we set it up again in another bracket. X squared minus 2x minus 63. And then multiply that by the other bracket that I'm missing, which was x minus 1 bracket, and begin to expand again. Now this one I probably will draw the lines just so I don't get mixed up. So x squared by both terms in the second bracket. So we get x cubed minus x squared. Don't forget that this one at the end is a negative. Then again, don't forget it's a negative. We've got negative 2x times by both terms in the second bracket. So that's negative 2x squared. And it's a double negative here, isn't it? Negative 2x times negative 1 is a double negative. So that becomes positive. So just be really careful of that. So plus 2x. Then finally, negative 63 times by, again, both terms in the second bracket, so negative 63x. But as you can see, once more we have got a double negative, so that's plus 63 at the end. And finally, simplify everything. So x cubed minus 3x squared minus 61x plus 63. I've got 4 terms, so there's my answer. So our next question, we've got expand and simplify 2x plus 5, x plus 2, and x plus 3. You can see the difference with this one is we're back to all positives, but we now have a coefficient in front of one of the x's. So that's another added layer of complication. So expanding out the first two brackets, 2x plus 5 and x plus 2, gives me 2x squared plus 4x. Do make sure that you remember that if there is a coefficient in front of the x, it does affect the other bracket when you're multiplying. Plus 5x plus 10. Obviously simplify the middle two terms, or the x terms if you've done it in a different order. 2x squared plus 9x plus 10. Okay, perfect. So now onto our second half of the working. In one bracket we've got 2x squared plus 9x plus 10. And in the other bracket we've got our final bracket that we missed out, which was x plus 3. So expanding all of the terms in the first bracket by all of the terms in the second bracket, we get 2x cubed plus 6x squared again. Remember that that coefficient will affect the second term in the second bracket. Then we've got 9x squared plus 27x. And finally, plus 10x plus 30. So I've got all 6 terms ready to simplify. 2x cubed plus 15x squared plus 37x plus 30. And there's my answer. So same process even when you have got coefficients in front of any of the x's. Okay, this is just another step up again. We've now got coefficients in front of two x's and a negative to consider. So expand and simplify 3x plus 1, x plus 2, and 5x minus 9. Starting as always with the first two brackets, 3x plus 1 and x plus 2. We get 3x squared plus 6x plus x plus 2, and then simplify it. We get 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. So then for our second part of the working, we have a bracket with that in it, so 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. And then our final bracket was the 5x minus 9. Expand again. Now this time we do have not only a coefficient in front of the x squared, but also the 5x. So that would be 15x cubed. Careful of the negative, so negative 27x squared. Then we move on to our 7x. So plus 35x squared. Again, negative 63x. And for the last one, the 2. So 2 times 5x is 10x, and 2 times minus 9 is minus 18. So we've got a mixture of positives and negatives in there. Now to simplify and collect the like terms. So 15x cubed, negative 27x squared plus 35x squared should give us 8x squared overall. Negative 63x plus 10x is negative 53x. And then just negative 18 at the end. So there's our answer for that one. Okay, this is our final question before we do look at one other slightly different scenario at the end. Hopefully by now you've got the gist of it. We've got coefficients in front of all of the x's for this one and negatives in 2 of the brackets. So as long as you're paying attention to every detail on every multiplication, you should be fine. So multiplying first of all 8x minus 2 and 4x minus 1. So we get 32x squared minus 8x minus 8x again, and then that's a double negative, so plus 2. Minus 2 times minus 1 is a double negative. Simplify 32x squared minus 16x. Now be careful because sometimes people think that this would cancel because they're both 8x and they're both negatives, so it's like taken away. But actually they don't cancel. It has to be one positive and one negative. In this case it's just negative 16x still. We don't lose anything. Step 2, so now bring that into a bracket. Now I guess this one is a little bit more difficult just because you have got the coefficient for the x squared as 32, which is quite a big number, but you'd likely, I guess, have it on a calculator paper anyway, so if you needed to use the calculator. In this case not so bad because the second bracket is just 2 and 4. So expanding with our last bracket, 2x plus 4, so we should have 64x cubed plus 128x squared. Then looking at the middle term, be careful because that is a negative one. We've got negative 32x squared and then negative 64x. And for the last one, just 2 times both terms in the second bracket, so that's plus 4x and plus 8. And collect the like terms, 64x cubed plus 128x squared minus 32x squared would be 96x squared, and negative 64x plus 4x would be negative 60x plus 8. So there's your final answer for that one. So our last question is slightly different, only because can you see that we've got double brackets and then a term on the outside. So there are still 3 different things to multiply together, but the first one isn't really in a bracket because it's only one term. So I just want to go through how to multiply this one out. This also works as well if you've just, I think it's quite common, you might just have a number on the outside, so 2 lots of a certain double brackets. There are 2 ways you can work this out. You can either stick with kind of the same method as before and go with the first 2 terms, multiply those. Now it wouldn't be double brackets, it would technically be the same process as single brackets, but those are the first 2 terms. And then once you've done that, bring back the 3rd term. Or you can just stick to multiplying the double brackets, the ones that are actually in brackets first, expand, simplify, and then multiply it all kind of like a big single bracket by the 2x on the outside if you like. What I don't want you to do is multiply 2x by this whole bracket and 2x by this bracket, because then you would be doing it twice. It would be like 4 things you were multiplying, not just 3. So choose out those 2 options. I can kind of show you both actually. Let's do that. So option 1 is just stick with the same method we said. Expand the first 2 terms in this case. So that would be 2x and then just x plus 3. So if I expand that just a single bracket, you can go back and watch that video as well if you feel the need to. It would be 2 times x, first of all, so 2x on the outside multiplied by everything on the inside of the bracket, so 2x squared, and 2x times 3, so plus 6x. Nothing to simplify there, just that is just the answer, isn't it? And then you can take this and put it in a bracket, so 2x squared plus 6x, and multiply that by whichever bracket you're missing, which is in this case the 4x minus 14. And that's just double brackets then, isn't it? So step 1 again. 2x squared, just remember that you are now working with kind of an extra layer of x's though, but it is just 4 terms multiplied, isn't it? So 2x squared times 4x would still give us a cubic. We are still ending up with a cubic because you've got an x here, an x here, and an x here. They're all multiplied together. You're going to get x cubed. If it is just a number here, you're going to end up with just x squared, aren't you? So 8x cubed, then negative 28x squared, come underneath, plus 24x squared, and finally minus 84x. So we've done that, we've expanded it. We can now simplify, because as you can see, I've done it in that same order. I have now got terms in the middle that are like terms that I can collect. So overall, 8x cubed minus 4x squared minus 84x at the end. Now this one doesn't have an actual number just on its own at the end, because technically everything was multiplied not just by the 2 but by the x, wasn't it? So in this case, we have ended up with a cubic answer. It is still a cubic because the highest power of x is 3. But we've ended up with not only 1 fewer term, we've got 3 terms instead, because obviously we're missing kind of like a term up here, aren't we, in that bracket that isn't there. And also we don't have a term that's just a number, because again, as I said, we multiplied everything by x. So that's kind of the first process. If you want to do it the same way that I've just explained, you can do it like that. Right, I'm just keeping the answer here so you can remember that it is the same answer. The other option, as I said, was that you could just multiply the double brackets first, and then this we're going to multiply by whichever one we haven't used yet, which is the 2x, isn't it? Do you see how I've got exactly the same answer? You might find that that was faster. You might prefer it that way. That's fine. You might prefer to stick with the other version that was just at least the same method as before, so it's consistent in that way. So that is pretty much everything you need to know on triple brackets. As I said before, this is higher tier only, this one. If you want to go back and revise double brackets and single brackets, they will be linked down below in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave down below any questions or comments that you might have.